Yeah, just understand this, that you are your brand. Now, a lot of people get it mixed up. They think that a brand is the colors that you use on your website or the font or the images. No, that's just a visual representation of your brand, but really you are your brand. And here's a great way to say it. Your brand is the intersection of what you're putting out there and what people's perceptions of you are, because your brand is not necessarily what you think you are. Your brand is what other people think you are and how they see you.
Welcome to the EQ for Entrepreneurs podcast. Like most business owners, you already know you need good business and marketing strategies to scale and be profitable. But at some point, you've hit the dreaded wall where you feel stuck and frustrated. EQ for Entrepreneurs is for business owners and leaders who are honest enough to admit that they just might be the ones holding their business back and are brave enough to change that.
We're Noble and Kathy, and every week we're having candid conversations about all things emotional intelligence and how growing that has allowed us to get out of our own way and is radically transforming both our businesses and our personal lives. This is the secret sauce strategy for modern entrepreneurs who are tired of hustling without seeing results and want to grow a business and a life that they love.
Welcome, entrepreneurs, leaders, and influencers, to episode 35.
We're talking about why you might be struggling to find your authentic voice. Okay, and this is a big deal. This is a big deal, especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you're trying to make a difference, if you're an influencer, if you're a leader of some kind. And so just know we have created a journal page. And if you're trying to build your brand and you're struggling a little bit with how to do that, if you don't feel like you're clear on it, we're going to deep dive into why that might be happening. And so you might want this journal page. Go to eqforentrepreneurs.com/35. That's the number 35. And you can download, it's a worksheet that's going to kind of talk through, you can kind of work through some of this that we're talking about here today.
And again, if there's a way for you guys to help out, we would love it if you guys find value, if you could share this content with friends, family, colleagues, peers.
Leave us a review, subscribe.
Yes,
something.
Rate, yeah. And we, hopefully, again, you're going to get value out of these, a lot of these topics and subjects here. So here's the deal. So number one is, whether you like it or not, in today's day and age, if you are an entrepreneur, business owner, you are building a brand. And I'll go so far as to say this is, you are a brand. You are a brand. I remember, man, which one of you guys will remember one of the big giant epic rappers said, "I'm not a businessman, I am a business man." Right? And so you are a brand. You are your business, and regardless of what the name of your business is, whether you're running a franchise or you have a mom and pop shop or whatever you've got going on, you are your brand. Whether, again, intentionally or unintentionally. Many of us, again, we've been entrepreneurs for 2 decades now. And I will tell you, in our 2-decade journey plus of being entrepreneurs and being a part of over 10 different startup businesses, I honestly don't think that I have thought about this concept of being a brand as much as I have in the last year or so. Again, definitely well into our emotional growth journey. Because I tell you, when you're not self-aware, it's hard to even think about your brand when you don't even know about yourself. You don't even know who you are and that kind of thing. You have a tough time maybe reflecting and thinking about some of those things about yourself. So here's the deal. And for those that have been unintentional about this area of your business, like me, the reality is you're still known for something.
Yeah, you actually do have a brand. It's just an unintentional brand.
That's right. And it's again, a great chance that it's fuzzy, unclear, and may and maybe even more than likely not what you want to be. That your existing brand, who the perception, the vibe that you're putting out may not be the vibe or the perception or the image that you want being put out there. So and then Kathy had a great point here too.
Yeah, just understand this, that you are your brand. Now, a lot of people get it mixed up. They think that a brand is the colors that you use on your website or the font or the images. No, that's just a visual representation of your brand, but really you are your brand. And here's a great way to say it. Your brand is the intersection of what you're putting out there and what people's perceptions of you are, because your brand is not necessarily what you think you are. Your brand is what other people think you are and how they see you. And here's something that we've learned, because we're working on this too, right? We're working on this and trying to, okay, we're creating this brand. How do we do this? What's this look like? Here's why EQ matters when you are working on developing your brand, right? Because one of the major elements of EQ is having self-awareness. Okay. So the relationship between your brand and finding your authentic voice is this: it's already within you. Your brand and your authentic voice is already within you. It's in you now. The problem is we're not in touch with that. The problem is we don't know who we are. We're not in touch. We don't see ourselves clearly. And that's why a strong EQ is the foundation for a brand. The foundation and the foundation of a strong EQ is self-awareness. It starts with knowing you, knowing who you are. That looks like knowing what your strengths are, knowing what you like and what you love and what you really don't like, and what your core values are, what attracts people to you. If we were to come up to you and ask you any of those questions, could you even answer them? Because for me on my EQ journey, there was a time I could not answer those questions. I couldn't. I knew maybe a couple things about myself, but I was so out of touch with really who I was on a deep level that it was very hard to do any kind of branding exercise, because I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. It was like I had this total block, and I really had to spend some time getting to know me and getting to know who I was and the things that light me on fire. Because when you're so, I'm jumping ahead. So
Yeah,
let's
so let
jump
me
into
just
this.
share. So I've actually got a dashboard that is that we could potentially make available to help with this point here about knowing you and knowing who you are and your strengths and all this kind of stuff. It's a very useful tool that again that can really help with this process. And again, personal story, personal testimony here. This is something that literally Kathy and I are working on real time. So by the time you're listening to this, we have been working on this stuff. The whole emotional growth journey, obviously for 2 or 3 years, but specifically our brand for the past, man, I would say year and a half, and as recently as of this
This
this week.
week.
And so here's what's been crazy. We were on a coaching call with a brand expert, and she was coaching us on developing our brand, and it was fascinating because she's like, "Hey, Noble, I'm getting a lot of good skinny from Kathy, but you're really quiet." And when I did my homework on you and your background and your content and your videos and your podcast, your YouTube channel, all that stuff, you don't come across as the quiet guy. What's the deal? What am I feeling? And I said, man, I'll be honest with you. This is very hard. This is very hard for me to talk about. It's very hard for me to talk about myself and to have somebody ask me questions about myself. And here's the thing, and I never verbalized it before. In that conversation, I verbalized it, in previous times, but I wasn't even aware that I was doing this until she called me out on it. And she's like, "Well, what do you think that is?" And one of the things that I have struggled with for many years is self value and self worth. And literally, this was one of the stories that I used to tell myself, and clearly, evidently, it still need to work on. I am not worth spending time talking about. So, like, just ask Kathy questions because she's valuable and worth it, but I am not. So, don't, my input or opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I think about it. It doesn't matter what my opinion is or my thoughts on this subject because I'm not valuable, I'm not worth it, and let's just move on with Kathy's thoughts. And it's like, again, does our emotional intelligence, does our emotional growth journey impact our business? Well, are you kidding
Yep.
me? Like, that absolutely directly impacts my ability to even think about, to literally to even think about what our brand is and who am I and what are our strengths and all these things. So that is a literally a last week real world, this week real world example of how my emotional growth has limited our business, and in this case our brand.
Yeah, and some other reasons that it's hard to find your brand or find your authentic voice. One could be fear, right? So it's maybe it's fear of being known, fear of being authentic with people. Maybe it's like, well, fear of rejection. If they really know who I am, they won't want anything to do with my business, or they won't want to listen to me. Right. And so well, I'm going to tell you what we do in the midst of it. How about another one? And I talked about this one, not really even knowing who you are. It's hard to create something about something you don't know anything about. And so if you're not in touch with you, then how are you going to even know which direction to go in or which direction to begin? Here's another one: undue influence of other people convincing you of who they think you are and what they think you should do. Okay, this is a big, when we turn over our power to somebody else, we now give them, they now have the position where they get to decide and they get to say who we are, or they get to say what we have to say or what we have to offer. And we totally step out of the responsibility and we step out of the place of being able to do that for ourselves. And that happens for different reasons. Sometimes you're around somebody who's really controlling and they just try to take that and they want to make you into their image, right? They want to make you into the image they have of you. It's wrong. But sometimes it's because we just don't see ourselves, like, for whatever reason, as being able to do that. So we might look to find somebody else who can tell us what we are and who can tell us who we are and what value we have. And sometimes that's okay as long as that person has good motives. But it's only okay for a period of time. You can't live your life that way. You can't live your life out of what somebody else thinks we should be or what somebody else thinks we should do. Here's where we need to go is, who are you created to be? Who did God create you to be? What voice did he create you to have in this world? That's where we need to be looking.
And again, I've got so many examples of these areas that of why you may not be aware, or these different reasons that Kathy's mentioning here. Two other ones: the whole people pleasing, right? Being a people pleaser. Literally, again, this has been my. Here's another story time here. Prior to this emotional growth journey, for over 2 decades, I, the independent and creative thought was not super. Let's say it was not super celebrated, and so what was celebrated is duplicating a particular thought process, particular behaviors. It's very similar to the military, just in a business context. And so for 2 decades, and then throw into the mix that I'm a recovering people pleaser addict, and so being in those environments, so the military, and then this very similar kind of military business environment, uh, that I didn't even know what my individual thoughts were, because again, they were not, having individual thought was not something that was encouraged or celebrated. And so now, after this emotional growth journey, I'm literally just now at the halfway mark of my life, maybe even third quarter of my life. I am just now starting to really like, well, what does Noble think about this? What is my opinion? And literally, even to this point, what are my business philosophies? What are my leadership philosophies? Without this people pleasing dynamic that has controlled me for so long, and without being in these kind of more controlling environments, I have the freedom now, the emotional freedom and the boundaries regardless of who has thoughts and who doesn't have thoughts, or how big a cheese they are, whatever, it doesn't matter. God didn't make me somebody else. He made me me. And I'm just now discovering who am I? And it's crazy to even think that. Some of you guys like, dude, you have more issues than Time Magazine, but I am thankful that I am getting this finally, later. Obviously, I wish I had learned this stuff when I was in my 20s, whatever. But I'm thankful that I'm learning this stuff now, so that I can figure out who God made me and how He made me and what gifts and strengths and talents He has given me. And now, because I didn't even realize that I had this. I would even argue maybe a gift of creativity and a strength of
Mhm.
creativity. And now I'm able to finally pursue that and discover that. Whereas before, man, it was a complete block because of those other dynamics and my lack of emotional growth and lack of emotional maturity and lack of boundaries. I never was able to go on a discovery journey of myself.
And, and what he said, I think, is why we're the perfect people to talk about this. Here's the deal: so many people think that they can't talk about something or teach something or help anybody if they're not perfect at it. And I just don't agree with that. I think some of the best teachers are the people who have failed at failed at it, who failed at things and have overcome them. I think they're some of the best because the things that you're naturally good at, you're probably not the best teacher for. Because if you're naturally good at it, you're kind of like, well, I don't know, I just do it. I don't know, it's just common sense. It just comes naturally. Well, and that's not helpful. Like, have you ever tried to learn something from somebody who's just naturally talented at it? They don't know how to teach it. But when somebody has struggled with it, when they've failed, when they've made all the mistakes, they can be like, "Oh, girl, I got you," or "Dude, I got you." Let me tell you exactly where you're going to stumble, exactly what it feels like, exactly what it looks like, and here is exactly how I overcame it. And so that's why we are your leaders on this journey. Because not your leaders, we're your guides. We're just showing you this is what we've done, this is the path that we're walking, and it's a really good one. So, okay, now let's talk through. Here are some things that you can do to help you find your brand, to help you find your authentic voice. In a way that we like to say it is, how can you be you loudly? That's it. How can you be you loudly? You are not put here to be somebody else. You are not put here to be formed in somebody else's image. You are put here to be you. And the way that you develop an amazing brand is if you be you, all the best parts of you loudly. And maybe even some of your flaws, as long as you're working on those flaws and not hurting people with them. That's part of what makes you you. So the first step here is create some self boundaries around who you're going to be, regardless of who's in front of you or regardless of who you're with. Right now, that sounds easy. It sounds easy to say, just be you. Just be you, right? But oh my goodness, how often are we chameleons? How often do we change or morph or only be show this side of us depending on who we're with, or only show a little bit of this, or definitely don't show that when we're around them? Like, and so it almost gets to be this game that we're playing of who we are. And when we say create self boundaries, that means I get to decide who I am. I'm going to decide who I am. I'm going to decide what my values are, what I stand for, what I like, what I don't like. And this is who I'm going to be. And I'm going to be this person regardless of who I'm around, right? This, like, I'm creating the best me. I'm working on creating the best me. But in the meantime, this is just who I'm. These are the things that I like. These are the things that I don't like. And I'm not going to pretend that I like these other things that I don't like just because of the people that I'm with.
And a couple of the thoughts on this is that to again find your brand and authentic voice, uh, defining again those boundaries, defining who you are, which is in a way creating healthy boundaries, is very much part of finding your brand and your authentic voice. Again, by defining, like Kathy said, by defining, okay, who am I? And we've got a whole list. Who am I? What do I like? What do I don't like? What upsets me? What do I love? That kind of thing. But I will tell you that this is so critical again from a recovering people pleaser. The other dynamic behind maybe not being authentic, or maybe by, again, as from a people pleaser perspective, man, I just look back and it was so incredibly exhausting trying to please everybody. And now, again, for the first time in my life, just being on this journey, I am more comfortable now than I have ever been with haters. And one of the thoughts that I had, some really good reflection time, is that I've studied and followed and follow and study a number of big leaders and influencers and entrepreneurs. And guess what? Every single one of them has 10 times the haters I have. 10 times the haters. They also have 10, 20, 30, 40 times the impact I have also. So one of the things that I had to really, face as a recovering people pleaser addict is that I have to be okay. The bottom line is, if I want to have a big impact, if I want to, one of my mission statements is to positively impact millions of people and for the kingdom of God, and to positively influence the influencers. If I want to do my fivefold mission statement, I have to be willing to have 10x the haters. And again, for the first time in my life, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with people having different perspectives, having their own opinion, that kind of thing. But now that I have healthier boundaries, thank you for your input or your comment or your feedback. Uh, and that's great. You have the freedom to have your input or feedback. And for me, also from an emotionally healthier perspective, I can say, well, man, let me see if there's any truth in this. Is there some things that I can take to help improve, who I am and all that kind of stuff. But other than that, I'm not gonna change who God made me to be. I would be violating God's boundary of who He called me to be if I try to be somebody else. And so, anyway, that's another big piece of that, is defining who you are, which is part of creating healthy boundaries for yourself.
I mean, 'cause it's so true what you just said. Think about it. How can you create a brand when you're constantly changing? How can you create? You
For other
can't for
people,
other
not
people.
improving. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're going to be constantly changing and improving yourself, but when you're this person here and that person there and a whole totally different person here, you can't create a brand around that. It doesn't make sense, right? So really define, what does it mean to be a healthy you? What does it mean to be a healthy you? Okay, so let's start to develop this a little bit. Let's just kind of talk through some things as you're developing this, and then we'll give you a one exercise that you can do. And again, you can go and download the journal page for this if you want a journal page to do this on, or just use a notebook, whatever. So let go of the idea or the notion that you can control another person. Now you might think, what do you mean control another person? Here's exactly what I mean. What we're ultimately doing when we change who we are in all these different scenarios, when we change who we are to be around other people, is we're trying to control what they think of us, right? Oh, I'll act like this with these people because I want them to think I'm XYZ, and I'll act like this with these people because I want them to think I'm ABC. Well, here's the thing, that's us trying to, in a weird way. And I know it sounds weird to think, well, I'm not trying to control them. Yeah, really, we are. We want them to think of us a certain way, or we don't want them to think of us a certain way. And we think that being truly ourselves, oh, well, that might not be acceptable here. So I can't truly be myself because I want to be accepted here. And when we let go of the idea that I got to stop trying to control what other people think of me, right? I can't control, like, that's controlling them. That's me trying to control their thoughts and their ideas. And here's the thing, they're going to think what they want to. And guess what? They're free to think what they want to. That is totally, they have that freedom to think what they want to think. And it's so much better for us to get off that treadmill of trying to control what everybody thinks of us and just say, you know what? I'm free to be who I am.
That's
and
right.
they don't have control over me, right?
That's
Like,
right.
so it's this whole control, counter control thing that we get into when we try to make people feel or think a certain way about us so that we can feel or not feel like, no, we just got to step off that because that's just, it's too much. We can't do that.
So you can almost turn both of these into questions. Do do I am I letting other people be free to be
That's good.
who they are? Am I letting other people do I let other people have the freedom to truly be who they are, and not what I want them to be, not what I expect them to be, but where they are right now? Do I allow other people? That's the first question. The second one is, do I feel that I have the freedom to be who I want to be, and not have to control other people's impression of who what I want others to perceive of me.
Mhm.
So am I free to be who I really am? Do I really genuinely have the freedom to be who God made me to be?
Yeah. And so, which leads to the question. So, if I am free, which I'm telling you, you're free, you get to have that freedom to be who you truly are, then who are you? Okay. So, here's the exercise. Here's what you
Wait,
do.
real quick,
Go.
just another point on that is that, man, again, take it from from a recovering people pleaser. If you want to be miserable, try living your life every day pleasing and controlling everybody else,
Whew.
and trying to pleasing and control everyone else's image and impression of you. That is and if you want to be ineffective at business, man, try to please everybody, right? You're just not going to do it. The bigger you
Yeah.
get in business, the bigger you get in leadership and in entrepreneurship, you will absolutely realize very quickly that you absolutely will not be able to please everybody, and that is fine. So, I just want to encourage you all to really work in this area, because you will find so much freedom
Yes.
and oxygen in just being you.
So, if you don't know who you really are, here's what you can do. Start a running list of things that make you you, right? Start a list. And it might sound crazy. Make a list about myself. Yes. I'm telling you, make a list about yourself. And it sounds silly, but if you struggle with this might be harder than you anticipate it being. So here's some things. What do you like? What do you dislike? What things are your favorite? I know for me, this is one of my hardest questions when people ask me, what's your favorite movie? Or what's your favorite book? Or what's your favorite food? I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know what's my favorite. Well, I've had to start a list and start to figure that out. What things do you want to do? What things do you really just not like doing? Not that you're not good at. Maybe there's just things that you can power through and exhibit self discipline and do them, but what do you just not like? What traits do you most want to be known for? What traits and strengths do others notice the most and comment on about you? Pay attention to that. What do other people say about you? What do other people say that you're good at or say that they like about you? How do you want to manage yourself in groups of people? Ooh, that's a big one, right? Because if you don't already if you haven't already thought through this is how I'm going to be when I'm in this group of people, then you're going to default to trying to fit in, or you're going to default to acting how you think they want you to act or how you think you should act. Somebody's telling you, no, you get to decide how you get to be. How do you want to manage yourself in times of conflict? Right? Do you want to be the person that punches a hole through the wall, or do you want to handle it in a calm fashion? Right? You get to choose that. How do I want to present myself in my business? How do I want to present myself in my brand? Is the way I'm currently presenting myself what I want it to be? Or do I want to make a change with that? How can I best communicate all of these things, right? How do I communicate the things that make me me? And then what visuals can I use to show that? Right. And that's ultimately where you get your brand. Your brand comes from your values, right? In what do you value? Your brand comes from the things that you believe, the things that you believe to be true, and the things that you believe to be not true or that you kind of are against. And then it's just finding a way to communicate that. And then lastly, you find the visuals. Okay, so now that I know who I am, and now that I know how I want to communicate it, what's a visual? That's where you get to your colors and your fonts and, visuals and that kind of thing. You don't start with those. You end with those because they are a result of you doing this hard work first and you knowing you and you creating something that is authentically you and allows you to be you loudly.
A couple thoughts when you're going through this exercise that would be really helpful for you to pay attention to. How challenging is this task?
Hmm.
To go through this list of questions that Kathy just laid out there? How difficult is it? Was it hard to do? Was it easy to do? If it was hard, why was it hard? Why was it challenging? And then the second thing is, so difficulty level is the first thing. The second thing is, how do you feel about doing this exercise? What are your feelings and emotions around doing this list of things that make you you? Are you excited to do it? Are you already thinking of excuses or reasons why, man, I don't have enough time to do this. I'll put this off till tomorrow. I'll put this off till next week when I have more time. Are you already starting to build a case for all the reasons why you shouldn't do this? Right? What is going on? What are the feelings and emotions around this exercise? So pay attention to those couple things there. The difficulty level of this exercise, and then the feelings and emotions around this exercise.
And here's the thing. Is this the long, hard way to go about this? Yeah, probably. It would probably be easier if you could go to Etsy and just click buy a brand, right? Oh, here it is. This is our brand. Here's a little box that's got our templates and our colors.
Brand
and
in a box.
Brand in a box. Brand in a box would be so much easier. But guess what? If you get a brand in a box and you don't do this work, you're just another nameless,
Blah.
faceless, blah.
Vanilla.
Yeah, you're just vanilla. Like it just doesn't come across the same way. Whereas when you actually do this work, this is what we're finding. And here's the thing, we're in this with you. Like we're doing this. We are doing this work. But when you do, that's when you come to life. That's when your brand comes to life. You live in full color and you stand out. And in today's day and age, if you don't stand out, oh my gosh, you're just one of 1,000 other that they all look the same and they all feel the same. But you guys know, when you come across somebody who is authentically them and they have built a truly authentic brand, it stands out. Like you can't help but notice. You're like, oh man, that's cool. There's something different about them. It attracts you, it draws you. And guess what? You can be that too. You can be that too.
Your brand and you can be that for somebody else. This is another great exercise you can do. What brands are you attracted to right now? What brands do you currently have in your life? And then something else you can do is why? Why do you have? So once you write down a list of all the brands that you have in your life right now, why do you have those brands in your life? What problem does that brand solve in your life? What's the emotion or feeling that you have when you interact, engage, consume, use that particular brand? Is something else, another great fun exercise to do. And again, always remember, there's a great verse that says, Psalm 139:14, you are uniquely and wonderfully made.
Yes.
You are a fingerprint. All our fingerprints are different. You are different. Your brand is needed in the marketplace. You are needed in the marketplace. You are a solution to somebody else's problem. Somebody needs you to win. Somebody needs you to figure this stuff out, to do the emotional work, to figure this stuff out so that they can be on the receiving end of your gifts, of your talents, of your superpowers, of your brand.
Ooh, that's good. All right, guys. If you want to download the journal page, go to eqforentrepreneurs.com/35. If you want to join a community of other entrepreneurs who are smart enough to know that emotional intelligence matters, and they are working on growing it. Join our free Facebook group, Emotionally Intelligent Entrepreneurs. At the time of this recording, it's pretty small. We're just getting it started, but we would love to have you there. If you want to submit a question, eqforentrepreneurs.com/ask away, and follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube, subscribe. We'd love to have you.
And join our Facebook group. We'd love to hear your stories. Share your stories with us. Again, we want to help create and be a part of helping entrepreneurs become emotionally healthy, because emotionally healthy leaders and entrepreneurs help other people develop and grow and become emotionally healthy as well.